Content Creation Blueprint, Module 4. Your blueprint to creating quality content to attract and keep your audience. Remember, these are our key phrases for this course: attracting and keeping your audience. Now, in this module, we'll cover a few suggestions to enable you to improve your productivity as a writer. We've gleaned this advice from the best writers to help you maintain your quality content. Now, here are some key phrases that will be your blueprint in this module. Know more about your audience through feedback. You'll learn more tips for quality content writing. We're going to discuss the role of marketing in writing and some ways to maintain fresh quality content over time. By applying these tips, you will increase your productivity in writing. Let's start off with some productivity tips. Work on distractions. Whenever you don't feel like writing, ask yourself a question. Do I want to do something else? Maybe you have had a Facebook notification and it catches your eye, or maybe you just feel the need to check your email. By now, you should be developing work habits that permit you to schedule these things. You should be checking your email maybe twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon, or even just once a day or twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Same way with Facebook. You should learn to put a timer. There are programs that you can connect with your browsers that will control the amount of social media that you can look at. This is good for you because it keeps you from getting distracted. But when you feel this need, go ahead. Stop what you're doing. Take some time. Get your yayas out, looking at your Facebook profile or checking your Twitter or going over to other social media areas. Get it behind you and then turn the page and start focusing on your subject. Your surrounding and situations is another very, very, very important item for your productivity. They can have a direct effect on the quality of your writing, on being distracted or not. Try to write in the same place every time. Try to remove other things off your desk or your writing area so that your eyes aren't pulled to these areas. Maybe keep your subject matter in front of you on a bulletin board, along with the other tips that we've talked about up there, to be sure that your writing is unique and informative. You want to be careful of deadlines. You want to work on deadlines according to your nature. For some folks, well, they just don't do so well under pressure, and they get nervous and stressed out when they have a deadline. Other folks, they wait until that last minute. They keep looking at the clock and they're saying, well, I'll get started in just a little bit. But each one of those can be counterproductive. You look at yourself and you see what kind of habits you've lived with. The best thing to do is try to partition up the work that you have to do. Make it in blocks of time so that you can map out, well, if I'm going to have this done by day 10, then I need to do this part today and I need to do so much of this tomorrow, and put it on a calendar or put it on a schedule and check it off. And if you can get ahead of time, that'll leave you time for kicking out or playing or doing other things that might come up. You sure don't want to wait until the last minute. When you have a deadline, you've got to be able to meet your deadlines either by having your assignments completed earlier or at least getting them done by the time they're completed. If not, the people that you're working for or working with will become disenchanted with working with you. And even if your work is good and creative and attractive, if you're not good at keeping your deadlines, which means keeping your word, then people will be disillusioned with working on you, with you. You should try new tools. Changing your tool can help you and bring in new ideas. You might even be more productive with a new tool. Maybe try using your smartphone for writing a bit or doing some research when you're in a different area. Say, take some pictures with your smartphone when you're out and about and put it into your research folders that might have relevance to what you're writing. You might use a tablet instead of a computer. Personally, I use a laptop for almost everything I use, but you need to look at what new kinds of tools you can use. There could even be programs with your computer or your iPad or your notebook or whatever type of mechanized system that you're using. It could even be a typewriter for writing with. You could have just a file folder and take snapshots and print them off, etc. Or you could have physical notes that you tear off and put in some kind of order inside of a physical folder, as well as the folders you might have inside of your desktop or inside of your computer for what you're doing. Take a break. Now, there are times where you should just stop, set the writing task aside, and do something that just clears your mind from everything. Now, that might seem the opposite of productive, but actually what you're doing is you're freeing up your subconscious mind that is sometimes blocked by a problem or phrases that you can't get past or whatever barrier that you're looking at, or even fatigue. By taking a break and doing something that just lets you express yourself or feel good, it gets those endorphins going in your brain, and it's like having a cup of coffee and a sweet snack or something, and you just feel more relaxed. Then you can go back to writing. One more thing, and I just needed to snip this up here at the top. Increasing the productivity of your writing, it's important. Even the most experienced writers find it hard to write and express their thoughts at some times. So don't feel like you're by yourself. It's a condition that all of us encounter from time to time. But by applying these tips, you will be able to dominate the writer's block you may be running into. Now let's learn about knowing more about your audience. We keep talking about audience, and I'm going to keep talking about it through these modules. You can know more about your audience through criticisms and feedback that they make. You can analyze your audience based on those criticisms and feedbacks in order to determine whether your goals are being achieved or not. And it's a first step, and it's an important tool for what's called the functional approach of business. And we'll get into that in just a second, but by you analyzing the criticisms and the feedback, it helps you see yourself and what you've written, not in the terms of being rejected or not rejected, but in the terms of how you're coming across. If you're really being successful in expressing the vision of what you're trying to achieve with the subject that you're putting before them. So by taking into account this criticism and feedback and applying it, or even modifying and rewriting what you've written, it'll make a big difference in your audience. Now, we talked about the functional approach. Maybe you don't know what that is, or maybe we just need to elaborate more on it. But the functional approach emphasizes setting goals and objectives, and then those guide us towards periodical measurement and analysis of those objectives. You could have a major goal, and within the major goal, you could have 3 or 4 objectives, which will help step by step take you forward to that goal. Then you could put besides objective 1 a time that you should be complete, and objective 2, etc., because usually you're working with a deadline. Your main goal could have your main deadline, etc. So you could even put this on a chart so you could see how one would flow into another, and it'd be easier to see physically if you're keeping up. But Your objectives also could uh, contemplate things that aren't just measured in time. You can contemplate whether this point or this point or that point are understandable, if you've elaborated enough, or if you've decided in your research you need to cover this, this, and this. You need to cover what kind of fishing pole or rod and reel to use and the type of bass fishing that you're doing. And then you also want to cover maybe the type of clothing that it's good to wear. And you also might want to cover planning ahead for the weather, etc., etc. So whatever those subcategories are, objectives are, have you filled those in your research? So that can help you map out, and that's part of your blueprint. And that helps you analyze your objectives. Ask questions in a way that helps your audience feel good. By focusing on the you aspect of the questions, you can give them a feeling that you care for them. And I'm not saying that in a manipulative way, but it's a good technique, and it's true. You wouldn't be involved in this or writing if you didn't care about your audience. So it's important that you keep that at the forefront of your mind. You're doing this also. It's not just put money in your pocket, because you're not going to be successful putting money in your pocket if you don't develop a relationship with your audience. It's about them. It's not about us. It's about them. Our information should be received from your audience, which will help you in making strategic decisions, so you can take the responses of your audience and carefully make amendments accordingly. Perhaps in a follow-up, perhaps people have said certain things that provokes you to look further in this one specific area. And then as you discover that, you can write about it. And you can mention, well, in the last article that we wrote, or in my last blog post, I wrote about this, and some of you responded in this way. Well, let me address that here. And that's important, because then they see, hey, this person is not just writing any old thing and putting it up on his website. This person is plugged in to what our needs are. It's plugged in to what it can do to help me get further and understand more about my situation. Now, here are some tips for quality content writing. I can't express this enough, but it's your content that makes a difference. It's got to be special. It has to be unique. You can write it yourself. You can republish something on your webpage, or you can outsource your content writing to some professional. But if you do, whichever of those three facets that you use or techniques that you use, it is important that you focus on the quality aspect. Even if you hire someone else, you need to put clearly in your instructions what you expect so that what they produce is going to be quality. You must have a passion about the subject you're writing about. Regardless of what the subject is, find an area of that subject that excites you in some way. Okay? Then your passion can grow. The enthusiasm will just flow out of what you're writing. Write in the first person. Write as though you're just having a conversation with a person, and your passion will come out. It'll be exciting to the person reading it. Even while writing content, you should always research for more information. As you write something, you might come across a term, or you might come across a situation that you're not totally versed in. That's not a problem. You can't be an expert in all of it. So when you find those things, dig deeper and then say, hey, while I was writing this, I found out about this. That could be just what someone else is needing to hear. Stay up to date, especially if you have a blog where you're talking about trends. You should make sure that you provide the latest information about your subject. Your people that are reading want the latest news. They want everything up to date. They don't want something 6 years ago if what 6 years ago is not applicable now. Think about the technology field. Wow, how much has changed in the last 10 years? How about just even in cell phone usage in the last 20 years, in the last 15 years? Now, it's almost impossible to think about what did we do before the cell phone came out. I know sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I go, or I might even be reading a book or reading a story, and I go, wow, if they'd had cell phones in, they could have just called up, da, 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 da. And it would have made such a big difference. Once again, we have to stress this, and we can't stop stressing the importance in quality writing of using proper spelling, grammar, and language to help you generate credibility. Remember, if folks find sloppy errors, they're not going to be impressed with you. No, it's not important about how creative you write. If you're sloppy in their eyes. The other important thing to stress here is language. We may have mentioned this before in another module, but everyone who reads what you're writing may not be an English language speaking person. Think about that. Your website or your article can be seen from anywhere in the world. It comes up in a search engine and somebody in Morocco, and they might speak Arabic. So they can understand English, but perhaps some of the colloquial phrases that you might use would be too much for a Westerner or a Southerner or something like that who would only know that. You want to be able to write in a more general form so that even someone who's reading you in China, who understands English, but they might not catch all the phrases, they'd still be able to understand you. That helps generate credibility. You always communicate with your audience directly, so that it feels like one-on-one conversation rather than simply stating the facts. This has an indirect effect of drawing a person in. The person feels like it's not just a one-way flow there. It's a two-way flow. They might even talk out loud responding to some of the things that you've written. And it certainly will help induce them to make comments in the comments. And then, of course, take those comments, respond to every comment you get. If you can do it personally, that'll go a long way to building a trust relationship with your clients. Now, you should develop a list of goals and objectives to have a clear idea of what you're seeking and to know what reaction you want from your audience in order to write the content respectively. Now, this doesn't really have to do with keeping on a schedule. This has to do more with staying on topic, staying in the same direction so you don't wander off over here and wander off over there as you're researching things and you find these little interesting things and then you just look to include it in what you're writing. What I try to do is I try to see the finished object or I try to imagine, envision in my mind, what is it that I want my audience to take from this content. And then I kind of like build it backwards from there. And then I write forward, back to the point that I've already visualized in my mind. So once I can visualize it in my mind, then I can start writing out some goals or some objectives and directions that will be my blueprint for me to write my content for them. Now, identify your audience's expectations by putting yourself in your reader's shoes. Think about their expectation from your content. This will help you so much being able to talk directly to them. It'll help you so much, it'll be just like you're inside their head. They'll be thinking right along as they flow and boom, they'll say, hey, he just answered what I'm asking in my head. That feels so good when that happens. Research and brainstorming will tell you what issues or problems your audience can have. Now, we've already discussed when we were talking about research, the need for brainstorming, the need for you just coming up with this idea and this idea and this idea, etc. But you can do that same thing based on what your audience's indicators are, based on a picture that you develop of who your audience is. You can start brainstorming. Well, if my audience is this kind of person that fishes for bass, but he doesn't use a boat, well, this, and this. Okay? Then you can start brainstorming about that. There's all kinds of ways that you can apply these techniques. Predicting probable issues will help you in solving your audience's problems in advance. And that's one of the things that will really build a blending between you and your audience. When you start solving their problems in advance, when you're building to it and saying, this is why this, and this will keep that from happening, they will be hooked because they will be thrilled with what you're writing. Now let's look at an important aspect that we haven't spoken much about: marketing. Marketing plays a very important role in making your writing a success. To attract audiences towards your work, you need to do marketing. Begin by having a website of your own, but carry out marketing activities to attract an audience and to make your website more user-friendly. Remember, we've spoken about the SEO as a component of marketing. Search engine optimization. So as you're writing your article, you're including keywords, you're including phrases, you're including steps. You might even have links in your writing to other things that will give better details than what you can cover in your article. And then you want to promote your work on social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter and other sites. But when you do that, you want to use just words and phrases and interesting sentences or pictures to describe your work. And then link this back to where your blog or your writing content is located. So people will go, oh yeah, I wonder about that. Or maybe you stir up a question in their mind and they click on that link and go there and read your article. The key to using marketing effectively in your writing is to provide the right information to the right people at the right time. Maintaining fresh quality content over time. You must plan how to have a continuous supply of quality content for sustainability and growth. Now, we've already discussed the importance of goals and objectives. And we've discussed the importance of goals and objectives in marketing, and the goals and objectives in understanding your audience, and in seeing that what you're writing is meeting those goals, and your objectives will help you flow through with your writing so that as you do your research, it kind of falls in place. Now, we want to carry it a step further. We want to carry it a step further so that you have a bigger pattern that you might be following, so that you're writing the content this week, and next week you're planning on writing another content, and the week after that you're going to write another content, or every 2 weeks, whatever's the time frame you have involved. But you're constantly planning ahead so that you have developed 2 or 3 pieces of content, and what you're developing leads you further, and it helps lead you to other research, and that research helps give you other direction. To create an enormous amount of information, simply study yourself. Examine your mind and ask yourself questions like what you would want to know about it. Why would it be applicable to you? Why would it be interesting to you? What could you do if you knew this information? Identify your expertise. Go out and explore where similar topics are being shared to help you out in promoting your content and your name as well. You will continuously be learning as well as promoting your name. Consider inviting other writers to share content with you on your site from time to time. But doing that, be sure that it's clear to them what your expectations are. No matter how good your marketing campaign is, a good content strategy will help you stay ahead and help you be successful. So let's remember, you should have a proper content strategy that will enable you to maintain good content. No matter how good your marketing campaign is, a good content strategy will help you stay ahead and successful. Traditional marketing talks at people. Content marketing talks with them. See you in the next module.